Okay, today we're going to speak about an introduction to toilets and the different types of toilets. We're first going to have a look at the difference between an open rim pan, a closed rim pan, and a rimless pan. Then we'll look at an open trap versus a closed trap. Then we'll look at a P trap versus an S trap, and then a top flush versus a front flush. Then we'll have a look at urinals. If we have a look at the difference between an open rim and a closed rim. Now the open rim, as the name implies, the rim around the pan is open. So if you look at it, at this cut piece at the front, you'll see there's an opening there, and if you look at the back, it's completely open, and you can put your hand inside the rim, so it's completely open. If you look at the other side, the outside of the pan, you will see that there's a channel that is exposed, which you can see running around the rim of the pan. So that's an indication that it is an open rim. If we have a look at a closed rim pan, the difference here is that it doesn't have that exposed channel going around the pan. What you have got is you've got a channel that is inside the pan, and you've got a whole lot of holes that sit underneath the rim, and that's where the water enters. So what you've got when the water enters into the back of the pan, you've got it filling up the rim completely, and water runs out of these holes, and it's a quieter flush than the open rim. The way you can identify that, if you look at the outside of the pan, it is smooth, so that you don't have any exposed rim around the pan. So that is a lot more aesthetically pleasing, and it's also a quieter flush. Then if you look at a rimless pan, that is where the rim is completely exposed compared to the open rim, where you can put your hand underneath it, but you don't actually see the rim. This one is completely exposed, and the benefit of this one is that you can clean it a lot easier. Just with a damp cloth, you can keep that rim completely free of germs. But the most important benefit of a rimless pan is that you get a far more efficient flush efficiency. So where we work on a 6 liter for a full flush standard, for the rimless pan, the standard will be 4.5 liters. If we have a look at the difference between an open trap and a closed trap and an enclosed trap, this picture here shows an open trap. And what that is, where you find a gap between the bowl and the trap. That is an open trap. Most of the pans that are supplied have got an open trap. That is the most cost-efficient method of production, because the pan only has 4 pieces in the production process. But one of the things that come out of that is that you do have that open trap. If you go to the closed trap, there you've got no visible distinction between the bowl and the trap. It's completely closed. Now you'll see that there is a distance, that the foot is away from the wall, so you can still access the outlet, and you can also access your cistern fitting and your fixing bolts with that pan. Then we go to the enclosed trap pan, where it is completely enclosed and the pan sits flush against the wall. So what's important here is that when you do your outlet connections, that make sure that they are watertight before you complete your installation, because you can't access your outlet once that is installed. And if we look at the difference between a P-trap and an S-trap, okay, this is a P-trap pan. If you turn the pan 90 degrees, you'll see that it is in the shape of a P. Now, a P-trap, another name for a P-trap, is a horizontal outlet. That's where the outlet goes through the wall, and that is the bulk of the toilets that are installed in this country. If you go to some other countries, like predominantly in the Americas, North and South America, and a number of places in Europe, the bulk of the requirements is going to be for an S-trap. But in this country, it is a P-trap. If you look at an S-trap, we do not supply any S-trap pan in this in our factory. What we do have, though, we can convert a P-trap to an S-trap. This particular one over here, this is the Tuscany pan, and we can use a ceramic trap, which then converts the horizontal outlet to a vertical outlet. And as the name implies, it's an S, so if you turn that pan on its side, it's in the shape of an S. That's where the outlet, instead of going through the wall, it goes through the floor. So what you can do in this, with the Tuscany pan, you can use that ceramic trap. It won't work, that trap won't work with any of the other pans, but you can use a flexible connector or a PVC connector, which would convert the pan from a P-trap to an S-trap. If we look at the difference between a back inlet pan and a top inlet pan, there you've got a back entry pan where the water enters into the pan from the back. And what you're going to use to operate this pan is either you're going to use your grower concealed cistern, or you can use a Vaal duct cistern, or you can use quite a wide variety of concealed in-wall flush valves and concealed duct flush valves. Then if we look at the top entry, as the name implies, water enters into the pan from the top, and you would use a Cobra top entry flush valve with this. The most common one to be used here is the FJ 2.210, which is a junior flush valve. You can also use the FM depending on the water pressure on the site. There we have a compatibility matrix between a Cobra flush valve and Vaal pans. Now there you see the difference, the categories we've got there. You've got an exposed top inlet flush valve, and there you see you've just got crosses next to the ORCHID top entry and the Parktown top entry. Those are the only two top entry pans that we have. One is wall hung and the one is back to wall. Then you've also got a concealed back inlet where the valve is situated inside the duct, and there you've got those three can be used in each of those three applications. Where we say ORCHID back entry, that also applies to all other wall hung back entry pans, and where we say Parktown back entry, that also applies to all other back entry back to wall pans. Low level pans as well, that applies to all low level pans. Then we have concealed back inlet in wall flush valves, and there you see the same, those three categories. Those two are compatible with those three. Then we've got the exposed back inlet. That's where you've got primarily a low level pan where you've still got the chrome flush pipe that's visible, and you've got the flush valve which is positioned on top of that flush valve, but it is all completely exposed. Then we have a look at the difference between a top flush and a front flush toilet. You'll see a top flush, you've got a button on top, and there you can have either a top single flush or a top dual flush. The standard supply that we've got is a top dual flush. We do also have an option of a top single flush. Then if we look at the front flush, that is a front flush handle, which is a single flush only. We don't have a dual flush front flush handle. There's an option if you're looking for a front flush dual flush. You can use one of our suppliers, which is Workwin. You can have a button which is positioned in that front flush hole, and then it runs, there's a cable that runs and attaches to the flush valve, so that can be activated. It can be used as a front flush. Now if we look at urinals, there's 3 different urinals we've got here. If we start with the sweet pea urinal, which is available as a top flush as well as a front flush. Now the benefit of the sweet pea is that it's got a skirt at the bottom, so that conceals the trap completely, and you've still got access to the trap because there's an opening at the bottom of the urinal, but it is not visible. So that's available as a top entry and a back entry. Then if we go to the Lavatera, is available also as a top entry and a back entry, but you'll notice that the bottle trap is exposed because it doesn't have that skirt around it. Then if we go to the flatback, which is available as a top entry only. This particular image is the flatback in a waterless application, because all 3 urinals can be used as waterless urinals, and you'll see that this particular one here doesn't have a spreader, because with the waterless urinal no spreader is required. Because if we have a look at the waterless waste that is used, that has got a non-return valve in it, so any water going into the bowl and down the waste trap, you're not going to get any smell coming back up because of the non-return valve. So that can be used in all 3 of those applications, all 3 of those urinals: the sweet pea, the Lavatera, and the flatback. Now if we look at toilets, there's a number of different types of toilets we'll look at. We've got a low-level toilet, a close-coupled, semi-close coupled, wall-hung, back-to-wall, paraplegic, as well as a squat pan. If we have a look at low-level pans, there's a variety of low-level pans. If we look at the junior toilet, which is a very low toilet, obviously the requirements there would go into a creche or into a pediatric ward in a hospital or into a shopping center. So that is a junior low-level pan. Then we have the standard one, which is an FSAN pan, and that one is the highest volume product. And that one, at the back you have a bung, which is used to be able to connect the flush pipe. Then if you go to the clip pan, which has got a big foot on it, the main purpose of this pan is to use as a replacement. If you look at the size of the foot, the square foot of that clip pan compared to the FSAN, it's much wider. So if you do remove a pan from a bathroom, you can replace it with a clip pan and you won't have to redo the tiles. So most of the time this is used as a replacement because it's an old pan. The outlet is also 104 degrees as opposed to the current one, which is 90 degrees. So it slopes down when it goes towards the sewer. And the inlet does not use a bung. It uses a little rubber flush pipe connector, which attaches the flush pipe onto a horn at the back of the pan. Then you've got the paraplegic toilet. The paraplegic toilet has got extra height, so the distance from the floor to the top rim of the pan is 480 millimeters, which has got a tolerance of 10 millimeters, so it's plus or minus 10 millimeters. But the requirement for that is to enable a user in a wheelchair to be able to transfer directly from a wheelchair onto the pan and from the pan back onto the wheelchair, which will be at a similar height. Then you look at a closed couple suite. This is still the most common toilet used in residential applications. There has been an increase in the requirements for wall hung, but the closed couple is still the predominant toilet used in household applications. So you've got a variety of top flush, top single flush, top dual flush, as well as front single flush. If If we have a look at the semi-closed couple pan, the semi-closed couple toilet performs a very important requirement. So where you've got a wall and a floor that is not entirely square, you can attach the cistern to the wall and it's not going to affect the aesthetics of it because it's resting on top of that little shelf of the pan. So when you look at it from the front, it looks like a closed couple. That's why it's called a semi-closed couple, because when you see it from the front, it looks like a closed couple. When you see it from the side, it looks like a low level. But the benefit you've got is that when you attach the cistern to the wall, you're reducing the snags of having that little gap between the wall and the cistern. So this one performs that important satisfies that important requirement of not having any gap between the back of the cistern and the wall. You can also use the pan on its own without the cistern, where you use a flush valve or a concealed cistern or a duct cistern behind the wall, and that shelf will sit flush against the wall, and you would have your water inlet coming in the back. You've also got the option of converting this to an S trap. So because there's sufficient space to be able to convert that to an S trap. So where you've got a high-rise office building or block of flats and you use this pan, you can also convert it to an S trap. If we have a look at some components that can be used as replacements. Now the old Daisy semi-closed couple suite used to have a rubber flush pipe. The rubber flush pipe doesn't exist anymore. So what we do, we've got a PVC flush pipe together with the necessary connections that can be supplied as a replacement. So that is called a Daisy conversion kit. Where you've also got a requirement to replace the cistern for the Daisy, you would use the Hibiscus elegantia low level cistern, which will be compatible with the old Daisy semi-closed couple pan. Then if we have a look at wall hung toilets, there you've got your top entry and you've also got your back entry, suitable in all applications, predominantly commercial and hospitality, but you will find these in some of these, especially the back entry toilets, you will find them in households as well, together with a concealed cistern. The back to wall pans, likewise similar to those wall hung pans, you've got the top entry and you've also got the back entry. The same requirements as with the wall hung. The flushing options for a back-ended wall hung and back to wall pan, you've got the grower concealed cistern or a range of the grower concealed cisterns. You've got the Vaal duct cistern, the in-wall flush master, a duct flush master. You've also got the option of an electronic duct valve and the exposed flush master for a paraplegic application, which is a back entry, but because of the additional single brick wall behind the pan, it does look like a top entry because the valve and the flush pipe are completely exposed. If you look at paraplegic toilets, you've got the wall hung toilet, a semi-closed couple, and a low level toilet. And the different flush mechanisms that you can use with these, with the wall hung, you will have a flush valve together with an extra length rod to be able to activate the user can activate the flush. You also can use a concealed cistern behind that pan. Then you've got the semi-closed couple, which is a lot more aesthetically pleasing than the low level. It uses exactly the same pan, but it does have that cover plate which sits between the cistern and the toilet seat. What you've got with the flush valve, the handle, you can activate the flush by either pushing or pulling, and it can be situated either on the left or on the right of the cistern. If we have a look at the fix-in brackets and bolts for floor mounted pans. There's mainly two different types. You've got the image on the left, which is a bracket that is fixed to the floor, and it allows a whole lot of holes for a screw to be pushed through the foot of the pan, and will make contact with that bracket, with one of those holes in the bracket, and you would secure it, and you would then put a chrome cap over it to make it a lot more aesthetically pleasing. Then the other one, you've got screws that just fix vertically down into the floor. That the bulk of the toilets have got that screw hole on the side of the pan where you can secure the screw, where you can secure the pan to the floor by using that screw. That is the pan where you've got the fixing hole, which is situated on the side of the foot, and you've got a horizontal screw that goes into the side of the foot, and that makes contact with that bracket, one of those holes in the bracket, which is attached to the floor. Then there you've got an exposed fixing screw hole at the bottom of the pan, where the fixing screw will go through and will attach it to the floor. The reason why we use these fixings for the pan is because previously we used to cement the pan to the floor. We now don't recommend that at all, because firstly, if the mixture of the cement is not correct, you're increasing the chance of a crack. The other benefit that you got by using fixing screws is that you can complete the tiling of the floor, then you attach the pan onto the floor, onto the fixing brackets. So if you do need to remove the pan at all, you would just remove the fixing bracket or fixing screws, and you would easily change the pan without having to change your tiles. If you look at the Parktown back to wall pan, it uses the same fixing screw as you do for the screw holes, the vertical screw holes in a pan, but this time it's horizontal. And right at the back of the pan, you've got a screw hole, and you would fix that directly to the wall. That screw hole in the foot of the pan, we don't recommend the use of that, because that's an extra length bolt that's required. But it is still there because some people still require that. But we don't recommend that is used in the installation. Then if we look at squat pans, the primary use for this will be in mosques, in shopping centers, and public ablution facilities. You'll find it on the side of the road in those garages. There'll always be one cubicle which has a squat pan in it, and this one is used specifically for the Muslim community in this country. The installation of this, the preferred installation, is to be level with the floor, and the only thing that is exposed is those two treads on the either side of the pan. So that's the preferred method of installation. The other option is to be able to use it almost like a drop-in basin, where you would cut a hole and you would drop the squat pan into it. That's not the preferred method though. The preferred method is to have it flush with the floor. What you can use where you've got a situation where you've got a vandal resistant application, where toilet seats do not last long, you can use INSERTA pads. All we do is we just attach these INSERTA pads to the sides of the toilet rim, and that will replace the use of a toilet seat. So this is suitable for those applications where the toilet seat does not last long before it disappears. There's a couple of special solutions. If we have a look at the old wall hung pan, which was called the PARAGON, where we can convert that to use the existing ORCHID pan. We can look at the old LOTUS closed couple cistern and the very old 4-bolt closed couple conversions. Closed couples 30 years ago used to have 4 bolts where you would fix the cistern to the pan, which is now down to 2 bolts. If we have a look at the conversion from the old PARAGON pan as well as the LOTUS pan to use the ORCHID pan, you would cut the bracket off, the cradle bracket that the Paragon and the Lotus had. Cut that off flush with the wall. You would then insert this, which is called the ORCHID conversion bracket, attach that to the wall. What you need to do though, you need to make sure that the positions of the inlet, the outlet, and the fixing brackets are all in line with the new pan that is going to be installed, because the dimensions from the inlet to the fixing holes and from the fixing holes to the outlet are important. So it's important when doing the conversion that those dimensions are adhered to. The Lotus close couple is discontinued. We do have a few of these cisterns, cistern shells and lids available. Once we have run out of stock of those, that won't be available anymore. But in the meantime, it is still available. Where you've got an old pan which has got 4 fixing bolts, we can replace the cistern by using this, attaching this 4-bolt plate to the bottom of the cistern. So whereas previously there would be 4 holes in the cistern that you would attach to the pan, we don't have that anymore, but we can have a cistern that does fit onto a 4-bolt pan by using these conversion plates. There's 4 different conversion plates that we have depending on the pan that you've got. If you have any questions or uncertainties, please can you contact us on this number on the screen.